to You're Already Accepted 2.0, a community rewatch podcast. I'm Ethan. I'm joined by Jonathan.
Let's go, season 2.
And Christian.
It is, in fact, me.
And guys, can I just say one thing?
I'm him.
Can I say one thing?
You can say as many things as you want.
Pop, pop,
Pop, pop. How have I never met Magnitude before?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah,
It's
I know.
a party.
I know. Who's Magnitude?
Pop, pop.
Today, we are looking at Season 2, Episodes 15 and 16, Early 21st Century Romanticism, and Intermediate Documentary Filmaking. So first, we'll start with Early 21st Century Romanticism. Christian, do you want to give us a little synopsis about the episode?
For sure. So it's Valentine's Day, one of the most pointless holidays of the year.
Say that again.
I mean, I'm not married, so I guess I can say that. I'm really in the doghouse this year, guys. You know, the old ball and chain wanted something special for Valentine's Day. No,
The old ball and chain doesn't exist. Oh,
man, I wish I had a ball and chain. Because, anyway, so there are a couple of plot lines as per usual. I mean, I guess that kind of goes without saying. The framework is that it's Valentine's Day. The dance is going on. So Pierce has a drug addiction, you know, as any lighthearted sitcom would have. One of the main characters has a drug addiction. And so the Greendale 7 has an argument about whether they should help Pierce or not, but they also have a falling out over the Bare Naked Ladies or B&L, you know.
Jeff and the group.
Jeff
Jeff is
group,
against the group. Basically.
Right.
we are fighting.
This is a fight.
This is a fight.
You know, whoa, Jeff, you are clearly in a bad space right now. So basically, Jeff doesn't have plans for Valentine's Day because he doesn't want to go to the dance. I guess he still plans on doing it because he's like, oh, even though we're fighting, I still told him I'd go.
Which I just love that. That's so beautiful. Like I'm like my fiance who in the shower remain unnamed. Like I'm starting to we're starting to get there where it's like, oh, we could be upset about this, but like we're still doing this. Like this isn't like going away. Like
right.
It's like I reached it. Like I got here. I didn't think this existed.
Man, look at us now. Who would have thought it?
Yeah, not me.
I know you're mad at me, but we still have to watch This Is Us tonight. So
Yeah.
So he's fighting with the group, but he's gonna go to the dance. And then Duncan is like, oh, your little 6-headed ball and chain, right?
Yeah.
He makes that joke. And so Duncan invites himself over to watch Liverpool and Manchester. He's like, I know that you're American, and so you don't watch soccer. But then Jeff is like, I'm a cool American. Like I've been forcing myself to watch soccer since 2004, which is a very white guy thing to do, white American thing to do. So they come over, and Chang interrupts to watch the game, quote unquote. That's his cover. But basically, he like somehow stole Jeff's license or driver's license, which is kind of funny. Jeff is like, "What are you doing here? And how did you find out where I live?" Well, let me respond to both of those questions by returning your driver's license to you. And so basically, Chang creates a party at Jeff's house, but it's all a ruse to live with Jeff for a while because his wife kicked him out whenever she found out that whenever Chang might have gotten Shirley pregnant. So while that's going on, Troy and Abed are they meet Mariah. Dang it, Mariah. I thought I was going to say the right name. Who is a librarian. And they're both smitten with her. They would like to court her. And so they do it like together, which is honestly kind of sweet that they're not like competing. Because I feel like every sitcom ever is always like, yeah. So it's really sweet that they do that.
This is the cutest thing that's ever happened to me.
Yes, this is the cutest thing. She says that. Mariah says that, not Miranda. Eventually she does choose Troy. But she thinks that Abed's weird. And whenever she tells Troy that, he's like, I hate her. And it's kind of cool that like they look out for each other.
Yeah.
What's the thing that he's like, he tells Abed, like, she thought you were weird.
I am weird.
Yeah. And then they start hugging and then he's like, ignore her. Cause she like walks through the breezeway.
Well, cause Troy says something like, we'll find somebody for both of us, man. Or somebody, he kind of says something like, we'll find somebody who respects, like we'll both find, there's somebody out there for both of us.
Yeah.
Cause I think he feels like Abed's maybe hurt too by like the fact that she didn't choose him.
I didn't really get that, but maybe. I think what I got was that like their friendship is more important than any relationship.
Yeah.
And so like if Mariah is not cool with Troy being friends with Abed, or like is not cool with Abed, then Troy doesn't want to date her.
And like, cause I was kind of feeling that too, but I think you remember that episode where it's like, the White Abed. And they're like, oh, it didn't work out. And I was like, I wanted this to work out for you guys.
Right.
Like, I think I was feeling bad for Abed. Because like I feel like I've been in that space where it's like, damn, that Frasier.
Damn.
But which gosh, I was gonna say like this is sort of unrelated, but like and I like this never happened with for like Christian and I. Like, but I mean this goes on for like all my friends.
Universal.
If like there was a girl like who, you know, my friend and I liked, like I'm like I'd totally let my friend go for it. Like even if like that's just me, you know, like
yeah,
you know, it's tacky, but like bros before hoes is like at the end of the day, like that's I've always kind of believed in that sentiment,
right?
And like
I think I also do that, or I would do that, but I think there'd still be like some sadness in it of like almost like a well. I don't want to try and fail and then have my friend do it. So like, I'm not going to try.
Yeah. So
I think it really shows the difference between Jonathan and I. He's like, oh yeah, for sure, bro, go for it. I'm like that. No one's ever going to love me. But yeah,
like I'll tell you, I'm going to leave out some details here, but like my freshman year at Northwest, there was a girl who came into our student ministry who I'm like, damn. But my friend, like I knew he liked her pretty much from like the minute he saw her. And like when I like investigated and found that out, I was like, bro, like please.
It's
like,
another Frasier.
Yeah.
Damn.
But I mean, they end up getting married and like good, like amen. Like so. But yeah, so I just thought that was really beautiful with that little relationship there.
Fun. While that's going on, there's also a plot line with Annie and Britta, mostly Britta. Is there a plot line for Shirley in this episode? I think she just.
I don't think she shows up like at all.
Yeah, I don't remember.
She shows up like at the very end because whenever they're all reading Jeff's text, Britta leans on Shirley, but she doesn't have like any.
Right, you're right. So Britta is friends with Paige, who she thinks is a lesbian. Okay, she's friends with a lesbian because she's not homophobe, and it's in our modern context, it's like performative allyship. But in the episode, it's like I'm friends with this girl. I don't care who thinks that. It's weird to be friends with a lesbian, and I'm so cool that you know. And she's playing it up because she's like, oh, most people are judgmental towards lesbians or like towards the LGBT.
You can't ask questions about it because that makes you homophobic,
right? So we come to find out that Paige isn't a lesbian. She thinks that Britta is, and so then there's a hilarious girl on girl like they go. That didn't come out right. They go to the Valentine's dance together to like prove a point that like a straight girl and a gay girl can go to the dance together. Of course, each person thinks that they're the straight one and the other person's the lesbian. One thing leads to another, and they end up kissing at the fair or at the dance. And they're like, "Oh, I've never done this before. Wait, what?"
Yeah.
And Britta kind of gets basically Paige says that like, "Oh, I didn't ever think you were cool. I only thought you were a lesbian." Because she calls out Britta for only wanting to hang out with her for thinking that she was a lesbian. So Britta kind of has to eat humble. Nope, I'm not gonna say that either. Britta realizes that like, oh, maybe I shouldn't just, you know, kind of leap into everything. And then Annie and Britta almost kiss, which is a very Alison Brie thing to do, like in terms of acting. But so, and then at the end of the episode, Chang gets to stay with Jeff for a little bit. Because Jeff kind of has a realization that like even though we're fighting, like we still need each other. But he also realizes that the group doesn't need him as much as he thinks that they do because nobody texts him that night. He expects there to be a bunch of voicemails. So in light of that, he lets Cheng stay with him for a little bit, and then he texts the group, and we find out that Pierce is like OD'd on a park bench, which is like the darkest but least really like focused on parts of the whole show, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So
it's kind of just like last 10 seconds of the episode.
Right,
it's like a cliffhanger.
But almost, I feel like if you were watching this in 2011, like you would notice it, like, Pierce is asleep on the park bench, or maybe I guess you would have picked up that he'd OD'd. But yeah, it's definitely not like I feel like it would have been more sad if like Troy and Abed were walking home together, and then they saw Pierce, like, oh gosh, Pierce, you okay?
I feel like the way they set it up is like they focus on his phone with the pill bottle, and you see it zoom up, and you see him on the bench, but you're kind of like. For a comedy show, I can't tell if they're just playing this for laughs. It's like Pierce passed out.
He's the OD guy. Right.
And then next episode, we find out, oh, shoot, he OD'd and he's in the hospital.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. It's kind of the way they frame it is like odd. I mean, it's shocking to see, but you're kind of like, I don't know if this is a joke or like what's going on, which I guess is good. Like it makes you want to watch and see what happens.
The shot is included in like a feel good moment.
Yeah.
Because Jeff is like, Pierce, like let people into your heart. There are a couple of six bozos or 6 weirdos outside your heart. Let them in. Something like that.
Which like, have you guys ever? Because it got me thinking. Like, have you guys ever watched somebody hallucinate or like just not be like?
Yeah. Just because. Well, we had a great grandfather who like had dementia, like Alzheimer's. I don't know if that's really the same as hallucinating, but like we spent a lot of time like in the nursing home where like there were like guys who had dementia, and it was kind of sad because like you'd always like hear from an orderly like, oh yeah, this guy used to be like an intelligence officer in the Navy or like something like that, and like then they can barely like form cohesive. Like there was one guy who could only say his own name. Like the only word that he knew was his own name. And he'd just say that nonstop while he was awake. And then you knew that he was asleep because he wouldn't say it. And then as soon as he woke up, he'd just say it again. So yeah, it is sad to see someone who's like not in there and this isn't like a slight against anybody at all, but like who's not in their like right mind, like who they are is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember there was this lady that went to my dad's church for a little bit. And like most, Wednesday nights when she would show up, it would like whatever, but like what she would do is I'm assuming somewhere along the way she lost her son, and like she would like pretend to have like a Bluetooth in and be like, all right, yeah, well, I'll grab some dinner and I'll come home and all right, yeah, I'll see you around then, 7:30. And it was like, I remember at first I thought, oh, like she's talking on Bluetooth. And then like, oh, I remember eventually I walked around like, oh, nothing's there. Like she's just, I was like, man, like that's just, and again, as real, like pausing and, oh yeah, sure. Like, oh, you're breaking up. Like as real as conversation you would have with anybody. It's like,
now I feel bad for faking conversations just to get out of situations. Dang.
Not still on board. That's good.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you get
and like that, like that's pretty harmless, but everybody copes their own way. Yeah, for sure.
Huh. Well, should we get to the A+ on a brighter note? Now that we're all depressed.
Where are all the white women at?
That was probably my top A+. Was just that line from Leonard. It's like,
do you want me to put that on a T-shirt for you?
Oh, absolutely, bro. That'd be a great wedding gift.
Yeah.
Oh
my
goodness. Where's my white woman at?
Where's my white woman at?
Please actually do that. Actually,
see, I guess I remembered him saying like we're all the Hispanic, or like something like kind of racist. But I was like, oh, okay, Leonard is multiracial in terms of his dating, so that's kind of cool. But nope, he's just a racist old white man.
And then what's it called? Starbirds bringing just a single slice of pizza to pay.
It's like it's not even like a slice. It's like a single like mini. It's not even a slice. It's like a mini. What do they call those? Like party pizza. Like it's round. Like it's a
like one of those like toaster oven.
Yeah, like a bagel.
I guess I'd never noticed that. I never like
because like Ching's like, oh, he owes me a pizza, and like he walks in and throws him like a thing in a Ziploc.
I guess I remember him always having like a pizza box. I guess, and that's kind of like the trope in TV shows. But yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I always love like the first intro scene where Britta's like admitting that she has a lesbian friend, and then they're like, "Oh, Pierce, I can't believe you are saying anything for something like this." It's like, "Oh, I have nothing off the cuff, but I have this prepared statement." And then it cuts to the theme song. I think we talked about this maybe with the Happy Birthday episode where to you. Why would we sing the last 2 notes only? And like they used the theme song as a cover, which is kind of
Jack
meta.
Black, where he's like, I feel like the timing is off. I feel
like the timing is really and then the theme song good. Yeah. The whole like whenever Chang shows up and you like see him in the peephole.
Yeah.
And then like he comes in and then he destroys Jeff's lamp with the nunchuck. It always cracks me up.
Yeah. And
like I said, a weird place for a lamp, but I'll pay you back. Like, Ken Jeong is as annoying as he can be in this part of like the show where he's crazy. He's good at acting. Like you got to give him credit. Sure. And of course, mentioned earlier, first appearance of Magnitude. Pop. Always fun. Was Lee?
I'm actually British.
Harry Potter. What's his name? Lee. What's his character in Harry Potter?
Jordan?
Lee Jordan. Thank you.
Wait, that's who it is?
Yeah, same guy.
Huh.
Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa. I'm actually British. Yeah. That's in like the last season, right? I think he makes it. I'm actually British. Yeah.
Which
what?
Because I watched him in a different show, and I was like, oh, like is he doing a British accent or is he an American? Or or flipped, whatever. But he's British.
And this would have been about the time that like Harry Potter was like the movies were kind of like wrapping up, like they were really big. So
I don't think Lee Jordan's in any of the episodes or any of the movies past the.
I don't really remember him
because then like Dean, whatever his name is, Dean Thomas,
maybe
something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there's another
the other African American student at Hogwarts.
Well, he's not African American.
He's not.
I think he's British, so he's not African American.
He's a black man.
He's black. Anyway,
the other student of Afro-Caribbean descent.
Well, technically Afro-Caribbean, no.
If he's not from the Caribbean, yeah.
Christian, you have any plus best scenes or lines?
I think that in terms of all of the plot lines, they work. I feel like this is probably like the mid-season finale, maybe, of this episode of this season.
It feels like it.
Nope. Never mind. The other, I'm looking at IMDb, and the other one aired a week later. Which this definitely feels like a mid-season finale.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because the last time there was a Valentine's Day dance, that was Slater and Britta, or I guess it was the end of the year dance. The training dance.
This definitely with Pierce at the very end. We're like, oh, it's Pierce. And then also like the group doesn't need Jeff. He sends a heart message. Yeah, right. It feels like a finale,
mid-season finale. Yeah. I do love the realization between Annie and Paige's friend. I like how they casted somebody who looks pretty similar to Alison Brie.
Yeah,
and I love that. It's a pretty well-worn trope, but like that trope of like casting separate but like pretty similar characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm thinking like Zombieland Double Tap, where they have Luke Wilson and one of Dwight's brothers in the Office, like that kind of like B-list actor. I don't remember what his name is. No offense if that guy's listening. I don't think it should be this quality. I just know that like that's how I know you. Or in Shaun of the Dead, there's another like he like walks past a group of people who are exactly like his group. Anyway, and just sort of like the realization of like, oh, neither of them are lesbians. They just both want to be cool.
Yeah.
And like think that they're like, you know, and I think Ethan mentioned it, like both of them are like kind of dressed in like that stereotypical, like what you might expect somebody who's lesbian to wear.
Yeah.
Like the fedora or like the leather vest. I don't know. It's pretty funny.
I also love like, and I mean, I think they write it very well and very like played in the middle, but I just love how like part of the message is like everyone's kind of clout chasing. Like,
yeah,
even, you know, just
even
because,
allies.
Yeah. Homophobes or non homophobes, like you're still kind of,
you want to be, yeah. Don't know. Not a homophobe.
Yeah.
Yeah. That whole exchange is kind of funny. What Annie asks, like, so I think she asked, like, do you change? Is she okay with women changing in front of her, or are you okay with changing in front of her? And Britta's like, see, I'm not going to ask that question because asking questions like that is homophobic. And he's like, is asking questions homophobic? And Britta's like, well, if you have to ask if asking questions is homophobic, doesn't that already make you a homophobe? And Annie's like, it's not biting. She's like, does it? I don't know. Oh God. And then, right. And Britta's like, oh, here comes Paige. Am I going to ask her 500 questions about being a lesbian? Or am I just going to treat her like a normal person? Why?
But yeah, like, cause that's the thing. It's like, oh, if someone's, you know, different from me, like, I'm gonna ask him a bunch of questions if I am curious, like,
because otherwise it'd be like, well, I don't see the world in that way. Like, I don't see color, like, but I don't see sexual preferences. I don't know, like, the equivalent of that. Because I feel like having a good relationship with somebody is being asked like those tough questions, right? Because if you want to be a friend and an ally, like you're wanting to take that person's perspective into account. So
for sure.
Look at us solving all the world's problems in my apartment.
It ain't hard.
Racism is bad.
Yeah.
Homophobia is not a good idea.
What's our lesson here? Crime doesn't pay.
Crime doesn't pay.
I
think 9/11 was bad. I think freedom just a little bit better.
Yeah.
I'm against crime. I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
Bobby Newport.
Yeah.
Also, I wish Paul Rudd was in an episode of Community as like Jeff's, like maybe if they had cast Paul Rudd as Rich.
Oh, that would have been perfect.
I wouldn't have hated Rich.
I wish. I don't know much. That wow, yeah, I love that. I wish they had it. No.
Yeah, because
I missed that.
The first 2 seasons outside of I Love You, Man, what was Paul Rudd doing? Nothing. Come on, like, he had time.
Scrub. Who is he? You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
What's he doing?
Yes.
He was being the grown up Tommy Jarvis in Friday. No, he was in Halloween. He was in one of those. He's in one of those horror movies.
Yeah, he was in one of those scary movies.
Yeah,
I can't remember which one it was.
Okay.
Well, late 90s, but
oh no, he was in it wasn't Halloween. I don't think it was one of those though.
I feel like it was.
I'll look it up. You keep talking.
It was because they came out with another Halloween last year, and he turned down the role to come back because he was going to be in Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay.
He was the uncle in the new Ghostbusters movie.
Hey, Unc.
But so for leading the class, who did you guys have?
I had a tough time like really picking somebody because like I feel bad for Britta, and I think even though it's like not my style of comedy, the ideas in that are pretty funny. Like, oh, she thinks this person's a lesbian while the other person thinks she's a lesbian. It's like kind of that classic misunderstanding.
Right. This would be a lot simpler if we just talked about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, that's, I can appreciate the people who think that that's funny and stuff like that. But let's see. Really, there's no one I love in this episode. I mean, like I love John Oliver and but I can't give John Oliver.
Not even Duncan, just John Oliver.
Yeah, yeah. He lived.
What? So I have a question. Since I've messed it up so many times, why is the leading the class only for the Green 07?
Well, okay. So a little inside baseball here, but inside podcast. But when I first came up with it, I was thinking like, because there's 7 of them, surely there's going to be like enough variability within like what they do in each episode that like, oh, we wouldn't necessarily need to pick anybody else inside the cast because there's 7 of them. Like there's
there's been so many episodes that sucked where we had to pick somebody else.
Exactly.
All right.
So yeah,
you had one job.
Yeah, it's kind of blown up a little bit.
I'm going with Leonard.
Yeah,
some blows.
Yeah, truly. So I'm going with Duncan. Yeah,
that's fine. We can. We've graduated.
Yeah,
I'm going with Troy. We talked about earlier, like the whole wholesomeness of him, dumping Mariah because she called Abed weird, and there's just a nice bromance there. But even just like he wants somebody who's going to value Abed like he values Abed, which is probably hard to find. But he has such a close friendship that she doesn't see Abed the same way he does, and she doesn't understand him or like value him as much as he does, and so he doesn't want to be with somebody who doesn't have that same perception of Abed. And Abed admits he's weird, like, but Troy doesn't want that to be like. He wants his girlfriend to love Abed like he does,
right?
Because Abed's a part of him. It's his best friend basically,
and he doesn't like rub it in to Abed either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, he's not a jerk about it. Like, the fact that, and like we mentioned, like the fact that they are both okay with like whatever one wins, like it's fair. Like that we are just we're going to compete for your hand basically, and then if you pick one of us, we're not going to get mad. Like.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like before we kind of move on, we should probably talk about like how they go about courting her. So first it's just like, oh, she's really attractive, let's stare at her, and then yell books so that way she'll shush us. And then they actually kind of give up the courage to like go talk to her. And it was like, my name is Abed Nadir, this is my associate Troy Barnes. Charmed, I'm sure. And they say like, we're both interested in you. Which one of us would you like to date? And she brings up a really valid point of like, well, I don't know either of you, so I can't really make a decision. So then they come up with the idea of like, well, we'll both take you to the Valentine's Day dance so you can get to know us, and then you can choose who you want to see again, which is again a pretty smart like idea, pretty like low stakes, I guess. Like,
yeah,
nobody's third wheeling, and it's nothing serious yet. And then there's like the gag of like Troy's carrying a briefcase to look professional, and she's like, "What's in there?" It's like, "Oh, tacos. Did you want one?" No, I'm fine. Good, because we were really hungry. We wanted to eat them. Yeah. Gotta love Troy. So then they go to the dance. They Abed explains all of the Saw franchise. Troy shows off his dance moves. There's something else that they have, because I feel like there's like 3 different kind of interactions they have. Because the last one is, all right, well, who do you want to see again? And then she says, "Hey, Abed, can you get us some drinks?" And if a girl was with me and my friend and she said, "Hey, Christian, can you get some drinks?" I'd be like, "Dang it."
Well, I'd react like Abed. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, sure." I
love punch.
Yeah. Say less. Like,
I guess it's sort of the whole like, "Oh, hey, can we talk?" Like,
no, but I wouldn't catch it. Like,
oh,
you would catch it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, she wants a drink. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
or maybe I wouldn't expect it, and I'd be like, "Oh, fuck." Okay.
Yeah.
Damn. Another Fraser damn. Because she does end up choosing Troy.
Yep.
And the logic is like, oh, Abed's cute, but he's just a little, and that's kind of what sets Troy off. Is like, nobody talks about my friend that way.
Mm-hmm. And we don't actually see her call him weird.
But yeah.
But that's
it's implied.
Yeah.
So I think for the same reason, Troy is my leading the class as well. Troy and Abed, but Troy particularly, because again, like their friendship is rock solid. We do see that kind of change a little bit whenever eventually Troy and Britta start dating. Like there's that whole episode where like, the Floor is Lava episode where Abed kind of creates the whole illusion and like drops into the lava because he's like sad that he doesn't get to hang out with Troy as much anymore. But yeah, I feel like for a pretty average episode, this is a pretty cool moment in their friendship. And it's not really it's not really honed in on, I guess. I think it's still more played for last, but it's kind of cool to see for sure.
Yeah, I kind of wish they would have showed a little more of them trying to court her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like I think that would have been really fun. Just Troy Abed moments, and maybe they, you know, I guess if it was more of that, we might be complaining there's too much. But
right,
there's a lot they could have done with that, and it would have been enjoyable because they're just such fun, you know, characters. And
yeah, and we don't really get why Mariah chooses Troy. Like
she mentions, like he talked about Saw the whole time. Basically,
he's like, yeah, but Saw's awesome. Yeah. I love that too. It's like, who wouldn't want to?
You know, like with the bar episode of Troy's birthday, we see him Abed talking to that one guy about what's the show that the gay guy that's hitting on him, Starscape for like Farscape, whatever, and like we actually see Abed talking about it, you know, and they play video games or whatever. It would have been a little more enjoyable to have like an extra like just 20-second scene of like a maybe not a montage, but just another interaction with like those three.
Yeah,
you know, the two guys and her, and like they were both hitting on at the same time, like trying to impress her. Would have been more enjoyable, but I mean, I still think they're leading the class. I like the plot, so.
So you would have liked to see them compete a little bit more, or just see
not even more? It's not competing, I guess.
We just like have some more interactions,
a little more just of them, because it's like you have them in the library talking about her, and then they go up to her and approach her and ask her, and then you see them at the dance, like Troy dancing, and then Abed goes to get the punch in a different scene, and that's when she tells Troy, and that's basically it. Like we don't see any of the like from when they arrive at the dance, basically to the point where she chooses Troy. We don't see much of that, you know?
Yeah. I feel like the problem this episode has is that honestly, all three plot points, or four if you count Pierce's ODing, but they're all, I feel like, interesting enough to like be in an episode. I just feel like there's not enough time devoted to all of them.
Which is why I think this feels like a mid-season finale. Because like everybody's getting like a major plot, basically.
Right.
Besides Shirley, obviously.
And I hadn't put that together yet before that. But yeah. Jonathan, you did Duncan, right? Yeah. Do you have any extra credit? Any extra points you want to talk about?
I mean, like I think I mentioned this earlier. It's the first appearance of Magnitude. Pop. We get him a lot more soon. He's one of my favorite side characters, so I just enjoy that. And I don't know if you guys know this. I didn't either, but I looked it up, or I found this on IMDb. Starburns' sideburns are actually shaved into hearts.
No,
because they don't show them very much. But I guess like whenever Chang calls Starburns, you can see the hearts.
Oh, that's neat.
Heartburns, yeah. So, and I think Christian, you might have mentioned this earlier. Like, this isn't the first time that they hint at like the Britta Annie, like romance thing. Because like, I don't remember which episode it was where, they're all like in the group study room and they're talking about something. Like, I think it's one of the ones where I think it's the one where, no, that's not that one. I can't remember which episode it is, but like they're all like looking at each other as like because they're talking about like romantic partners, and like Annie and Britta like look at each other and kind of like give each other a look. And then Britta's like, you know, they kind of like look away. And just it's interesting. Like they kind of play in like Annie's like the innocent, like, oh, you know,
who knows?
Well, why don't I experiment a little bit? You know, whatever.
I feel like if this show came out, if there's an NBC show in 2021, there would be some backlash that none of the Greendale 7 are in same-sex relationships.
Well, like Troy and Abed, they would obviously, which they already do anyway. But
what?
People would just assume Troy and Abed, like ship Troy and Abed. Give us Troy and Abed as a dating relationship.
Trobed.
Yeah.
Oi.
Wait.
I guess that would make sense.
The only thing I had was this is one of my favorite titles of any of the episodes in the series, like early 21st century romanticism. It's
because you're romantic in general.
Yeah, and I found like it. I'll take that class, like because I feel like we would like go over movies and like modern day like dating patterns.
Well, like the romantic period is like a literature thing, like romanticism,
right? But like early 21st century romanticism, like social media dating, like rom-coms. I love you, man. Like,
and like 10 Things I Hate About You is mandatory viewing.
And then John Oliver in real life is a massive Liverpool fan, so that was kind of fun to see him like continue that within this fake world. So,
do you think that John Oliver will be in the movie? He's not announced for it, but I really want him to.
I hope so,
man. Because I watched his show on like I watched it on YouTube after it's on HBO Max. But, and anytime he mentions Community, I just light up like, it's the show that I watched.
You were in that. I like you in there.
Yeah. And he's just I don't know. Obviously, he's like kind of abrasive. Like that's kind of his style of humor, but he's a funny guy.
Yeah.
So he should be in the movie.
I wish, in terms of Marked and Red, I guess a statement and a question. I wish Allison Brie and Paige's friend kind of had more of like a connection and a bit of an arc a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking in my head in the background, like, okay, will they do a thing where like I was thinking like they would like follow it on social media and like tweet about it and stuff like that. And like, it would like, so like there's almost like a following that like starts to follow them as they're looking at Paige and and then it becomes like a physical following of people like, oh, and then Paige and Britta like, oh, they're just jealous or something like that. And go ahead.
What if you found out? I mean, this maybe not makes sense since her friend already knows that Paige is not a lesbian. What if you found out that she actually was a lesbian? And Annie's like, oh, I had such an easy time talking to you. Like, I didn't even realize it. Because it's not like, it like it's not a big deal,
That would have been great. Yeah.
But I guess it wouldn't have made sense because then whenever she's like, oh, it's kind of cool that your friend is hanging out with a lesbian. So I guess maybe whenever they interact the first time, there's not that line of like, I'm not one, but it's cool that, she's hanging out with one. I mean, maybe you just kind of cut out that line, but like, oh, which one's your friend? Oh, that one's mine, Britta. And at the end, at the dance, you're like, yeah, here comes my girlfriend now. And, you find it out like, oh, it's not a big deal. It happens. And then Annie learns a lesson that it's not bad to ask questions and like, I try to understand. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a good ending.
No, that's a good point. Like, it definitely felt like the fact that like they were talking at the scene where like they're in the lunchroom and then at the end at the dance, like Annie and Paige's friend are hanging out. It definitely felt like that girl's going to be like kind of a recurring character or something, or just like have. And honestly, like the actress looks familiar, and I looked her up and I don't know what she's been like. I just
thought she looked like Annie.
She kind of does. Like she looks like somebody I've seen before, but I don't think it's an actress. Like it looks like an actress that was in an episode or Friday Night Lights, but it wasn't the same girl as I thought.
She's a nobody.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like I mean, it's such like a girl next door / AT&T girl / like she'll be the spokesperson for
Capital One.
Yeah,
no, because you got Samuel L. who's Capital One.
No, but like a random insurance company.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
She kind of has like an Aubrey Plaza vibe going on a little bit too.
A what?
Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah,
kind of has a little bit of Aubrey Plaza look.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
it's like
one of those actresses that like she auditioned for the role of April, but didn't get it or whatever.
She plays Aubrey Plaza in like a spoof movie.
Yeah.
What happened to those? Those were like really big in the mid 2000s.
Like scary movie, superhero movie,
not another teen movie. Yeah.
They just made too many of them.
It's like the trope's gone. Like I think but like spoofs and parodies aren't as big of a thing anymore,
right? Those always made me uncomfortable because it's like, oh, it's the thing, but it's not the thing, and like somebody actually took time to make this.
It's like putting it on skin, but it's not.
Yeah.
And then my last thing would be, again, if this was made 10 years later, do you think there's a version where Troy and Abed in this show are actually like become a throuple? So,
a throuple?
Like 2 dudes, 1 guy. Hey, get out of here.
Say 2 dudes, 1 guy?
Yeah, a throuple. 3 people.
So 3 guys.
No, 2 dudes. Oh, I said 2 dudes, 1 guy.
Yeah.
2 girls, 1 cup?
Oh, God.
2 dudes, 1 girl. Excuse me.
I mean, still weird, but
2 bros.
1 show.
2 bros, 1,
1 Joe. No, but
who the frick is Joe?
Because I was thinking about that, and I was like, I feel like there's a version of this show nowadays where, or even back then, where like Troy and Abed, given their one close relationship, but also their uniqueness, like
to where it's not really weird, it just sort of like naturally happens.
Yes, exactly. And I think the show could present it in a way where like oh my goodness,
my cat is attacking something again for like the 17th episode.
But yeah, I think there's a version where like it comes up again naturally. And I think it would like be in this kind of scenario where they both like the same girl, but to solve the solution,
like we don't need a girl. Let's just we have each other.
Yeah. But like we can also have a girl. And so it's like there's this weird way where it all works out. But it feels right for them. I think there's a way the show could present that. But
I agree. I think it's whenever it's really heavy-handed and it's forced, that's whenever it doesn't seem genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Because then you'd also, have the whole like polyamory thing, which is really popular.
Yeah,
I agree with that. We haven't talked at all about Jeff, really. I mean, we talked about Duncan, but like he does some kind of soul searching because at first he's just mad at Chang for using his toothbrush, using his shower, washing his clothes, and Jeff's.
Which I mean, rightfully so. Like,
right.
Like that's
wearing his underwear. Like,
I'm sorry. I get being nice and I get like wanting to feel needed, but he stole your toothbrush. Like,
Right.
come on. Like,
he definitely had no, like, he was justified in kicking Chang out.
Yeah.
Like, and I think the reason that he let Chang back in is because he realized, like, oh, like you said, I need to be needed, and the group doesn't need me. But here's this poor soul that doesn't. Yeah. So, little iffy on that.
You have a rating for this?
I would say
I was pissed off watching it, so 6 out of
I
10.
was in a bad mood. Don't want to talk about it.
I was watching something recently, and that just reminded me of that. But I would say I would give it. I think 7 out of 10. I think there's really good bones to this episode.
It's a Monday Night Football rather than a Thursday Night Football episode.
That's exactly. Yeah, it's not to steal it. It's a Monday Night Football out of a Sunday night. A Sunday night
matchup.
Mahomes versus Brady game.
Sunday Night Football is nothing beats that.
Football.
I miss Al Michaels though, man.
Yeah. Not the same with
Tirico does fine, but
see, Al Michaels does not.
Guy.
Oh gosh,
it's Collinsworth.
Al Michaels does not give a crap though on Thursday Night Football.
Oh, he gets pissed off.
He's like,
these teams suck.
He'd be like, man, I touchdown. I'd almost forgotten how to count them. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty savage.
Yeah. Did you do your rating?
I haven't done it yet. I mean, I can go. I agree. I think 7 out of 10. Like, it's a good episode. It's not super exciting. I agree. It feels like a mid-season finale. I didn't think of that by myself, but I agree with you now that you say that. For some reason, like, I always seem to remember this episode, even though it's not super exciting. Like, every time I watch it, like, oh yeah, this is the one where Chang comes over. He looks in the, it's just like there's so many like memorable scenes, I guess, and like Britta and Paige kiss. Maybe I've just seen it a zillion times. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or like Britta's fake lesbian friend and Troy and Abed going after the librarian girl. Like it's pretty memorable. I wouldn't say it's like a top tier episode, but it's funny. It's enjoyable to watch. It's fine. I feel like I agree a little bit. Like honestly, all the plots work pretty well, but they're cramming so much into this 3-minute episode that, like I said, I feel like we could have gotten a little bit more of Jeff and Duncan because they're fun to watch.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of Jeff and Chang. Like the Britta plot, we get quite a bit with that, but even just like an extra, like to make it more interesting, with like Annie getting involved or something, or like I said, the Troy and Abed with Mariah just would have been funny to see more of that. I thought one of you put this down in your notes and I don't see it now, so I guess I'll ask it. One nitpick or one question is like, why didn't Annie say something to Britta? Like, why didn't she just say, hey, by the way, Paige isn't actually
she just didn't want to burst her bubble? I don't know.
That's a good question. Or like not even attempt to. Like, do you, like, I was talking to Paige's friend and like, yeah, she's not. And then like Britta will be like, let me stop you.
Yeah.
I know you're like, yeah.
I know you don't want me to think, or, whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that would happen, but why didn't Annie try at least,
That's a good question.
She just kind of let her do it.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of like whenever Chang steals Shirley's kid, or he picks up Shirley's kids, but it's not Shirley's kids.
Oh yeah.
And Jeff is like, you're a terrible person. I don't feel bad for you. Get out of my apartment. And then like Chang doesn't tell Jeff that they're not. Yeah, because like, oh, police, how much do you pay for anonymous tips? Yeah. Okay, well, this one's on me. Yeah, I get that. So what did you rank it?
7 out of 10.
Again, I feel like typically as these episodes go in our podcast, you guys kind of hit it on the head. If you would have repackaged this episode and taken 33% of it into another episode and make that kind of like the highlight, I feel like you could have hit some more beats with it. Mm-hmm. So you make an episode where Jeff is the one in his apartment, and like maybe the Greendale 6 are like going on a field trip, or like, maybe they're not in town. I don't know. So, I mean, it's an episode. It is one of the episodes of all time for Community. I give it a Valentine's Day out of Easter.
Jeez, that's a rough rating. You hate Valentine's Day.
That's true. I'll give it
unless you hate Easter too, and then relatively.
No, Easter. That's fair. Honestly, I'm gonna stick by that. I mean, this episode wasn't great. I'll be honest. No. I'm gonna change it. I give it a blow pop Valentine's Day gift out of Russell Stover's chocolate. Like, it's still nice to get a blow pop stuck to a piece of cardboard that says "Be mine," but it's another thing to get somebody chocolates for Valentine's Day. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm gonna stick by that. I'm gonna stick by that. So that was 21st century romanticism.
3-0. I'll take that.
And we're back. Season 2, episode 16 of the TV show, the hit sitcom Community.
The wickedly talented.
intermediate documentary filmmaking. So we pick up where we left off last episode, where Pierce has OD'd on his painkillers, which I don't think we really mentioned that in the last episode, the group notices it, but they don't say anything about it. Like, I think Annie tries to ask him about it, like, hey, you know that we care about
that's
you,
what
right?
the fight's about.
Yeah.
Because that's why Jeff feels like they should just let him.
The fight starts out about Pierce, but then I think they're actually more fighting about BNL.
Fair.
BNL, which is kind of funny because, like, we're fighting. This is a fight, but it's more about Bare Naked Ladies than it's about Pierce. But so in this episode, Pierce is alive, but he is quote unquote about to die. So he is going to bequeath upon people.
Yeah.
I'm going to bequeath all of
you about that. That's a great line.
Do you have a normal job here?
Should you be telling an orderly about that?
Hey, you can't go back there, or what? You're going to do half the work as a doctor, twice the work of a doctor for half the pay.
Thank you.
That was a consult.
Now I'm doing an explainer brag.
So Pierce uses in real life, y'all, he's not dying. Spoiler alert. He's using his position in a hospital bed to take revenge on the group because honestly, he's got a good point in this season so far. Like we saw it in the D&D episode, that he's getting excluded a lot more. So like, even though it's kind of crappy that he's manipulating the group, like they have been sort of like not taking him into consideration. So he's using his leverage to like torture them, like psychologically manipulate by quote unquote giving them gifts. I'm doing a lot. That's the last time I promise I'll do the quote unquote. So he gives Shirley first a CD of all the awful things that the Greendale 5 have said about her, because Pierce obviously wouldn't do that to her because he's a nice guy. But she doesn't want to listen to it because she's like, I don't want to hear what they said about me. And so I'm just going to not listen to it. But she uses that as sort of like a leverage against other people. Like, I already forgive you for what you said about me, excuse me. Even though she hasn't listened to it. So then she gives Britta a check for $10,000 to give to the charity of her choosing. She's like, oh, that's awesome. You know, we thought that you were trying to manipulate us. So it's nice. And then right before she walks out the door, this is a great shot. Pierce is like, well, of course you could always put your name on it and not give it to a charity. And like Abed Pierce shifts over to Britta and she like pauses for a second before she goes out the door. And then she like goes out. And so she's kind of thinking like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to use it to pay for my rent or my credit card bills. But obviously Britta, her whole shtick is that she's a humanitarian. And so it shows that she's actually not as good of a person as she thinks she is. Troy gets visited by LeVar Burton because even though he loves LeVar Burton, he never wanted to meet him in person. He wanted a signed photo of LeVar Burton because you can't disappoint a photo, but you can disappoint a real person, which is honestly a really good point.
Yeah. Like the more I've talked to people, the more I found more people with that like perspective. Like, oh, I love these celebrities, but like, do I actually want to meet them? No, like I'm good. Like it's interesting.
Because then you find out that they're conspiracy theorists who believe in the child trafficking cult.
Who worship the god Moloch. Whatever.
Yeah. The flying spaghetti monster. What else does Pierce do? He doesn't give Abed anything.
No, Abed doesn't get anything.
He's the documentary of the namesake documentary filming of the episode. But Jeff.
Sorry, can we cut in there for a second? I just realized something. I think that's his gift to Abed. Is Abed, you get to make, because Abed has that line at the end where he's like, turns out I thought making a documentary was going to be like fish in a barrel.
No way.
But it just, it was just like, he has kind of like that, like, oh, this isn't as fun as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
That's Pierce's gift to Abed. I just realized that. Yeah. That's his way to torment Abed.
Yeah.
Huh.
Sorry, I just realized that. Okay.
That's a good, I like that.
That's awesome.
But Jeff is going to have his father.
The best one, yes.
Come visit him, even though he hasn't seen his dad for years because his dad is a deadbeat who like left Jeff's mom and Jeff. Spoiler alert, the dad doesn't actually show up. It's just Pierce in a car. Pierce, if anybody other than my father steps out, whether it's an actor, he even says like a specific name. Yeah. But I will beat you. And there's nothing madcap or goofy about it. Clear? Crystal.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. Pierce is faking it. Jeff beats the crap out of Pierce, and then he has to get stitches.
Pierce also gives Annie a tiara.
Oh, how can I forget about that? Yeah,
which is kind of it doesn't really have as much
because
weight, but
she's his favorite. Like she's the only one who's like actually tried to talk to him and include him, which is going to come back in the next paintball episode. And so he tries to he gives her the tiara, and then she's like, "Oh, I understand, because I try to make myself special, and by making meaning out of it, I exclude everybody else. Thank you." And he's like, "Oh, it's really just because she's my favorite." And like, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But so that's a speed run of the little synopsis of the episode. A plus moments, my gentlemen. We've already kind of made some references, but you know what? Hey, we're vibing.
No, I told him 1,000 times I never wanted to meet LeVar Burton because you can't disappoint a picture. I hate you. I hate you.
That's great acting by Donald Glover.
But then it cuts off.
Yeah,
like back to him just being like frozen.
I know that was incredible. Like that scene again. We've all seen it probably tens of times, but took my breath away.
That's one of those like top community scenes.
Yeah, just. And it's also like horribly painful to watch him go through that because you put yourself in that space,
right?
But also great comedy,
right? And like with that, I'm not a knock on LeVar Burton because everybody loves LeVar Burton, but that's what makes it so much funnier. Is like he's just like they could have picked like Jamie Foxx or Denzel or like Samuel L. Jackson, like have that be the celebrity that Troy wanted to meet because
they couldn't afford him, but they could.
Well, right, but you know what I'm saying, like. It's LeVar's just random enough.
They could have Malcolm Jamal Warner, but
right, yeah. Like the fact that that's what Troy wanted was like a signed picture of LeVar Burton. Like that'd be like I want a signed picture of John Mahoney or something like that. From Frasier.
Yeah.
Like it's such a like random thing that
R.I.P. John.
Yeah, right. Rest in peace, John Mahoney. Frasier's dead, but and again, no disrespect to LeVar. Like it's awesome that they got him. It's just it could have been. That's what makes it funnier is that that's who Troy's idol is the guy from Reading Rainbow and Roots and Star Trek.
Right.
Like
also, this isn't the first time that we've heard heard of LeVar in the show because whenever Abed is doing the banana impressions, he does banana LeVar Burton.
Oh yeah.
So it's just kind of funny. I don't know if the showrunners are just like, oh, we love LeVar, so they actually got him.
Well, then LeVar gets mentioned again, right? The Troy.
Well, whenever he goes on the Childish Tycoon,
right?
LeVar Burton's there.
Then that's the news heading you see as like LeVar Burton and some guy get captured by pirates. That's kind of like an Easter egg of Community fans.
Right.
That you see that later in the show
for the Bear Dance episode.
For the what?
Isn't that for the Bear Dance episode?
I don't remember.
I think it is because like, have you guys not seen the news?
Down from it. Okay, sorry.
It's a totally real thing that has a Wikipedia page. See, a Duncan impression is something that you can do without having fear of like being insensitive because I mean the British have been insensitive for hundreds of years, so it's fine.
You got any other A+ scenes though, Jonathan?
There's a really quick line from a really quick exchange between Pierce and Annie where Pierce is like, "I know you must be really suffering," and Annie's like, "I'm crying on the inside," and Pierce goes, "Gross."
Gross. Point is,
yeah. And then I was just thinking about like because Pierce is very frustrating to watch a lot of times through the series, but also these are the episodes that make him feel really essential. And like, again, Dan Harmon is a better writer than us. So like, I have to like respect where he's coming from. But because sometimes I remember when we started this rewatch, I was like, man, I can go this whole show without Pierce. But there are times that like, whether he's good in an episode or he's the worst, like this episode, like he's essential.
He's who he needs to be.
Yeah. And like the group needs an internal person to rally against. And like Pierce is kind of, in a way, the real enemy of the show.
Yeah.
Because I think of like, even not to romanticize this too much, but like a great enemy is mourned. And so like even in Pierce's last episode when he's given the people all the semen and stuff like that, like in a way
it's sperm, okay,
sorry, but like that moment to like mourn him, even though he's hated and he's like frustrating to watch a lot of times and he's in the way, like a great enemy is always mourned. And like it's just man,
I mean it's hard to admit, but like without Pierce the show is so much different. And I think that's part of why, they probably push Chang so much as the villain from here on out is because, oh shoot, how can the villain also be part of the group? Like, at some point that kind of paints you into a corner of like, how do we have a guy that's in the group also be like the antagonist of the show?
Right.
Which is kind of weird. So this kind of almost was like a reset, I feel like, on Pierce. So like, all right, he's been the villain. We get he's a bad guy, but
he just made Fat Neil cry. So like we got to come back from that, right?
Yeah. That's a good point though. I mean, he's the wild card that the show needs. He's just crazy enough that he makes the show more interesting in terms of like, here's all these zany adventures we get to go on. That's a good point. There's you mentioned like the "you can't disappoint a picture" line, which is like one of the top community lines from the whole show. I think there's a couple other ones from this episode that show up on some of like the best of lists. My favorite one from this whole episode is when Britta walks in, knock knock, and Pierce goes, "Is that you, Death?" And Britta's like, "It's Britta." Oh, that's a pretty popular line.
Knock knock. Who's there? Cancer.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
It's similar. It's similar. Yeah. Yeah. And then Pierce also has another funny line. I think when Jeff comes in, he's talking about fathers. That's what, yeah, because Jeff's talking about his father, and Pierce's like, "I was never one to hold grudges, Jeff. My father held grudges. I'll always hate him for that."
Yeah, that's a sneaky good.
Yeah,
just a little little writing like flip.
But you know what? Whenever Pierce finally gets it over on his dad at the end, that's one of the few Pierce moments that's actually really good.
Yeah, I don't think we've had much of a mention of Pierce's dad issues until like this and the commercial episode,
right?
Or not the commercial, the drug play,
because his dad was in the commercial.
Yeah. Like we've had and all of a sudden now we're getting more of like which again, Pierce is becoming kind of the villain, but you have to have that villain arc of why is Pierce so homophobic? Why is he so bad? Well, I mean,
why are you the things that you choose to be?
Yeah. Not to excuse the stuff he does, but like, yeah, he had an awful childhood. Like his dad was a dick. Yeah. And he was the heir to a fortune, but So what do you got, Christian?
I really like, we already mentioned the compulsult, that the orderly, who also looks like somebody who's been in like NBC shows before.
She's having like a side character.
Yeah. He's looking for someone named Sourface.
Yeah. And she makes
right.
Oh yeah, that was so great. Yeah.
Don't you see Garrett and Pavel in the kind of like the B-roll?
Dr. Pavel.
Yeah, I just think that all of the bequeathals are really really good. I think they're accurate to the character.
Oh yeah.
And I know that we said that we probably weren't going to do a diorama question, but like honestly, what do you think that you might be bequeathed?
I was thinking about this kind of on the drive because I'm trying to think, how would I upset Pierce and what would Pierce do to get under my skin? Like, would I meet somebody? Would I be given something?
Do you want to go first?
No, you can go ahead.
I think that what he would do, I guess I hadn't thought about what I would have done to make him mad, because I don't think it really does he really personalize that to each person?
I don't think necessarily. It's just,
but I think that what he would have done is he would have said like, I have a magnum opus of every woman who's ever said that they were interested in me, or like sort of like, the girls who like have not wanted to date me, and like he's like, oh, I actually have proof that they really were in love with you and that you should go date them. But then it's sort of like an interview where he's like following this girl into the bathroom. She's like, ew, yeah, he's fine. Like he makes it out to be this thing of like, oh, there's this like realization that you're actually more lovable than you think you are. Mm-hmm. But then it's just like, oh yeah, sure, Christian, he's fine, he's whatever. And then I'd be like, oh, well, this is really underwhelming. And then just kind of like, like maybe during the episode, I'm kind of like building myself like, oh, maybe I am maybe I am more than what I think I am. And so like I try to ask out one of like the desk attendants. They're like, no, you're not my type. And be like, what the heck, Pierce?
Because, okay, how would you sum up? Because I'm trying to think. Tell me if I'm wrong or correct me, please. I would sum up Pierce's gifts as like, I'm going to give you something that you want, but it's not something. Sorry, I'm going to give you something that you wish you have, but it's not necessarily something that you want. Because it's like, oh, Shirley wants to know.
She wants to know that she's better than everybody by forgiving them.
Yeah. But
then there's actually nothing to forgive them about.
How would you guys sum up like what he's trying to do? Because like with the Jeff thing, it's like, okay, I want to let you know, like, oh, this is your dad.
Yeah,
like, this is the big part of who you are.
I think it's to play to their biggest flaws. Because I mean, and Troy is just sort of like, he's a kid at heart, so like his is like, oh, I'm just going to do a straight up embarrassing thing of have you meet your idol, right?
Yeah.
But then Shirley, it's like, yo, yeah, I'm going to make you think that you're superior to the other group, but then there's nothing really there.
I think it's just to sum it up more. But I agree with you more succinctly is like, be careful what you wish for. Kind of like, you think you want, like, Britta, you think you want this, you want to be this humanitarian that gives money to people, but it turns out you're just as greedy as all of the rest of us. If there wasn't a camera on you, you would take it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think, I agree with all your points. Like, I think I wouldn't say he's really trying to he is trying to get back at them because they don't respect him, but it's kind of it's like a personalization of not their biggest fears, kind of do you say biggest weakness? Is that what you said?
Yeah, biggest flaws.
Yeah, biggest flaws. I think I'd agree with that. Like, Britta's willingness for charity is a flaw because she's really just kind of fake, which then she turns into, and they actually all turn the flaws into something big, where some of them do. Like Britta turns into, well, I'm actually not, I am terrible with my money. But that's because I'm such a good friend. So she kind of turns what Pierce tends to be negative into positive.
Personally, I don't think that that's really the moral of the story. I think that she's convincing herself of that
a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She kind of interprets the meaning, but at the same time, Pierce doesn't win. I guess it's kind of what maybe the story the writers are trying to show. Like, Pierce at the end of the day doesn't get under their skin because like Jeff figures out it's not, he realizes it's not actually his dad. He does have daddy issues, but like whatever. It kind of like nobody really wins at the end of the day. Like it would have been really easy for them to be like, yeah, Pierce got under their skin and they're all psychologically messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But like Shirley finds out that the tape had nothing on it. Like they were actually nice to her and she feels bad. And I mean, I guess Troy doesn't really win because he gets to eat dinner with LeVar Burton, but then he just freaks out anyway. So like, whatever.
I think mine would be because I was thinking about this recently. So really, when I was a child, and it's part of being like the last one born, like so I want freedom, but like freedom comes with
like the fear of not being in control almost.
Well, like I found that with like being the last means that like I want freedom and I want responsibility. So like I want to be my older brothers, right? Because they got to do the stuff that I couldn't do. They got the responsibilities that I couldn't do. So I'm like, oh, I want a chance to do the thing with dad and like to,
be the guy who lays down on the wire.
Yeah. And so I want that, but also because I'm the last, I want freedom because that's what I was given as a kid. Cause when there's two other kids and like your parents already feel like, oh, we get the parenting thing down. You have more freedom than your older siblings. And so I think my torture would be like Pierce giving me or like a management position or something like
at Hawthorne Wipes.
Hawthorne Wipes. And so it's like, oh, you get to have this responsibility, but let's see what you can do with it. Like let's see if you can.
And your whole job is to like fire people.
Or yes.
Yeah,
like so, yeah, like oh.
Sorry, we have the Chiefs game on, so we're kind of
that's a first down. Oh, we fumbled it. Oh, of course he did. Oh, but I think it was down. Okay, cutting. But yeah, I think that would be my torture. That like, oh, I'd get this responsibility that I've always wanted, but am I actually now that I have it? One, I don't feel like I deserve it, and two, I like, can I actually do it? We'll see.
Yeah, I like that. Ethan, did you have any?
You guys can't spring this stuff on me because I have no idea. Honestly, sorry. Like I don't have any answers for this right now. But
I'm not it's interesting to think about. I think that your character flaw is no. I'm not going to do that. For leading the class, I put down Annie just because. Yeah, I think as the season goes on, the group treats Pierce progressively worse. But Annie, I think, is the only one who like kind of still maybe sympathizes with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because then like with the paintball episode. Eventually, whenever they kick him out of the group and they take the vote, like she's the only one who voted for him, like to stay in. So
yeah,
I do like that. There's sort of that like connection between Pierce and Annie, even if in the play episode, even if he tried to manipulate her, that it's still kind of on the up and up. So that's who I put for my A+.
I had Troy just because I feel like he did the best in terms of like acting, like. Going from like the freak out scene to like the catatonic state when like LeVar meets him. I thought for a second that LeVar was going to feed him too, which I would have loved.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm just going to put this in here.
Yeah.
Or like when he's singing in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good scene.
Butterfly in the sky. Yeah.
Take me rainbow.
More salmon for Kunta.
Yeah.
Can you imagine bouncing a check to Kunta?
Yeah. So, I had Troy.
Hot take. I'm gonna go Pierce. I mean, he's sadistic,
brilliant,
but honestly, like the fact that he knows that everybody else so well that he can figure out these flaws and find a gift that's going to catch them off guard, or they think it's good, but it's actually not. That's pretty smart on his part. And I see his frustration. Like, honestly, I think he's right. Like, they don't respect him and he deserves more respect. He's not a great guy, but like he's still part of the group and like he still has value, like we talked about. And I obviously his way of going out to get respect probably like isn't that's not the healthiest way to do it. I think it's just really smart the way he does it. It's just like kind of I respect it. Like that's entertaining to see him kind of pick these people apart, like their character flaws, and we know them pretty well by now. I mean, he has a lot of funny lines too, so like that helps. He's kind of the main reason this episode is even existing. Yeah. He's kind of like the in control of this episode because he's giving all the gifts away. But he gets his comeuppance at the end by getting beat up by Jeff. So the crap out of him. Yeah.
I wish like, and again, the framing of it, like beating up an old man, doesn't look good, and like the way Chevy Chase looks like an old dude.
Yeah.
But like I kind of wish Jeff got like a few punches in, like not like
rather than just like pulling him out of the car.
Exactly, not like busting his teeth out, but just like a few, or even like a few like punches to the chest or something like that.
Or just honestly, like maybe the group pulls Jeff off of Pierce and Pierce stands up and is like, well, like now I understand why your dad left you, and he just like punches him in the face.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
Kind of like with Michael and Pam, like, well, to be fair, she came on to me, and then Pam just slaps him. I feel like they could have done something like that.
I'm gonna date her even harder.
What does that mean?
You know,
yeah, I'm dating Pam, so you're not. What kind of car does she drive? Green Toyota. The seats go all the way back.
Whose mom are you dating?
Tell me, Michael.
Michael, tell me.
Oh no! Oh jeez. Okay. Any extra credit for anybody?
This wasn't really a trivia, but Shirley's whole using guilt as a weapon really shines through in the episode with
really hits home.
Really, literally hits home. And I feel like a lot of, well, I'm not going to say a lot of religious people, but our family is religious, and I feel like that has been something that each person in our family has used at a different point. I feel like sometimes it's very blatant of like, well, man, I really wish you would have, now that since you didn't do the dishes, I guess we can't go do this. And so making you miss out. But I also feel like in our family, there's a bad habit of like, if somebody asks like a favor, like the person that you ask, like makes it a point to let you know there's an inconvenience like, well, I was going to do, but now I'm going to have to come back later and do it, Sure, I guess. I mean, I wasn't really planning on it, but I guess I will. And I also like how Shirley's doing the talking head segment with Abed.
Yeah.
And like, I'm doing a talking head segment. Or were you planning on me being the only person who doesn't do it? And then whenever Abed leaves, she's like, I guess it all stems from my childhood. And I'm like, yeah.
It cuts away.
Yeah, it cuts away. But also, whenever Pierce gives Annie the tiara, the diadem, whatever you want to call it, she's like, are these blood diamonds? Are they Holocaust diamonds? Which is it's funny, but also like kind of sad because obviously Annie is Jewish, and like you make it sound like, oh, the Holocaust is the worst thing you can think of. So like, what's worse than a blood diamond, a Holocaust diamond? But like there was actually like those were real things.
Wow.
So like in the concentration camps, typically the Jews who were sent to the camps first were like aristocratic, or they were like the upper class, the wealthy, and so they would be told like you can only pack like one bag or one suitcase, and so that was obviously taken from them. But some people were able to like smuggle like maybe one earring or like one ring, and so there are actually like stories of, and granted, one story that comes to mind was actually from American Horror Story, which is not real, but like there is actual proof, like evidence that shows that like people would like swallow them. Excrete, like, and then like that's how they kept it, is like they just dig it out every single day. And of course, in American Horror Story, the doctor's like, she bled internally, and because she did it every day, and it would cut up her insides. But like that's actually kind of like a real thing. Like, so a pretty heavy trivia fact, but and a throwaway gag.
And like to Pierce's credit,
he would.
He's like, no, of course not. Like he's like, even that's like, for me, that's ridiculous.
Hitler? Like, yeah. But in terms of, do you guys have any extra credit? Any? I guess that's more of my final thoughts. Like, I don't know. I kind of mix the extra credit. I know that we do that, but I mean, it was a pretty good episode. I think it's sort of bodily, but not, because it's not one specific room. But it's never one of those that like I really look forward to. I think especially with Jeff's plot line. I think specifically Jeff's is kind of, I don't know. That's the one that seems like it matters the most.
Yeah.
I think.
Are you going to cut this with
footage of me freaking out? Is there footage of you freaking out? But it's definitely not. It's well written, and I think it's supposed to kind of make you frustrated that like these characters are awful people, or like they're flawed people. So originally, I gave this a Mosaic Hospital out of Children's Mercy Hospital. So if you're from the Midwest, Mosaic is sort of like a chain of hospitals that's not known for their like, Mayo Clinicus-ness. But Children's Mercy is like a children's hospital in KC that's actually pretty cool. I'm going to change my answer because I do think this is a pretty good episode. So whenever I was a kid, as most stories in the podcast that I tell start with, I was like really intrigued by vending machines. Not like the soda ones where you just like click a button and it'd come out, but like the ones with like the glass front where you could like see all of the snacks and the drinks. And I think it was because like as an 8-year-old, I was like, oh, well, typically I have to go to a gas station or a store to get like a Rice Krispie treat, but I can do this in a building. Like that's cool. Whenever our sister was born, Ethan and I ate a lot out of vending machines because like we were sort of the afterthought because we weren't the one that had just been born, which is totally understandable. You know, I'm not bitter about that. I always hated my parents. No, I'm just kidding. So I feel like if I'm going to re-rank my episode, I'm going to give it a Coca-Cola vending machine out of glass front vending machine. So it's not perfect, but still kind of cool. Yeah. So yeah.
Deal.
I'd say, yeah, this is a good episode. You mentioned that's kind of like a bottle episode, and I would agree. I had that written down as well. It's not a bottle episode in the actual sense, but it kind of feels like one. It's basically all in the hospital. It's essentially you have Pierce's room and then the waiting room and then like some other just like random places where they walk, but they walk around the same area pretty much. Mm-hmm. The bathroom and like the coffee or the vending machine area. I feel like the choice of the mockumentary style, like they're making fun of the mockumentary style, but the fact that that's what they used for like the medium for this episode works really well.
Yeah.
Because like just a normal episode, like a normal shot episode, I don't think would work as well. This feels more personal. Like we're seeing Pierce bequeath these things to people. Like it's they're in the room watching it happen. It just adds a little more like of a personal touch. We're like, oh, maybe Pierce is going to die, but he's not actually because he's faking it, whatever. Yeah. It just works well. And it adds some more humor to it as well, like with the talking heads. And you can see each person like struggling with their internal battles of like what Pierce gave them. Like Britta with the check is a great example. And like I said, the mind games from Pierce, I mean, as like messed up as they are, they're pretty funny, you know, and pretty genius on his part. So it's fun to watch and kind of see like now that we understand these characters and we know who they are, and we can be like, oh yeah, I can see how, like, I know how this is going to mess up Shirley. Like when he's like, yeah, here's a CD of people talking about you. Well, I know Shirley's going to get really upset about it. You know, you kind of know how she's going to react.
Yeah.
The only one I really didn't know about was like the Annie with the tiara, which again, he's just like, oh, it's because she's my favorite. So that's not really, there's not,
which is like surprisingly wholesome.
Yeah, it's wholesome. Pierce. And makes sense. Like she is the nicest of the group to him. But yeah, it's a good episode. I'd say like an 8.5 out of 10. It's enjoyable. Like it's not my favorite, but it's a good important episode for the group, you know, as a show and
cohesive unit.
Yeah.
I'll give it an 8 out of 10. So it takes place outside in the waiting room and in Pierce's room. And it kind of reminds me of like those old WWE SmackDown games where like if you're doing like a
backstage brawl.
Yeah, like a backstage brawl. You can be like 3 sections, like you have like the parking garage, like the locker room, and like somewhere
the catering else. Area.
The catering area. Exactly. You hit somebody with a pan of cookies.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of reminds you of that, or like a side scroller video game. So that's kind of fun. But yeah, 8 out of 10, solid episode, important episode. See you later.